Immortals Fenyx Rising tells the story of a mortal who accidentally tumbled headfirst into the affairs of the gods. As we'll see across the episode, that's the basis for maybe half of these games, but then again, that's pretty much the setup of all ancient myths. Fenyx Rising is, well, it's basically just Zelda, but with Greek gods and monsters and junk. I'm not knocking it, it works. So you, as Fenyx, will crash land into a world where the gods have lost their powers and been turned into trees and chickens and what have you. You'll restore them to their glory, gain their blessings, and take on a big bad evil. Let's take a look at a series that was once all about assassins until recently, where it stopped being about assassins for some reason. So Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla are less about skulking around and disposing of aristocrats, and more about going in all guns blazing and starting a big ol' ruckus. So each of the games takes a different setting, and there's a healthy sprinkling of mythological menaces to meet, befriend, or chop up. Whether your fancy is Egyptian, Greek, or Norse, there's plenty there to get stuck into. So they land at number 9, which is quite low, but they're also all too long, and I didn't finish them, so I'm docking half their points. Not to mention I chose to group 3 games together, so I'm also dividing their score by 3, which leaves them in 9th place. Is any of that fair? Probably not, let's keep going. Any viewers who were kicking around in 1986, oh how's the back, and enjoying the cutting edge piece of hardware that was the Nintendo Famicom, this one's for you. Take a bow, Kid Icarus. Despite not tracking that well with reviewers upon release, the game became a cult classic. It's set in a world which has ancient Greek vibes squirreled away in every crack and crevice, and tells the story of a scrappy young angel named Pit who set out to save the world, as angels are wont to do. While the series did get a short resurgence with a 3DS revival, the franchise has mostly been forgotten to time. Poor Pit, who once saved heaven and earth, now lives on as that bird guy with a bow in Smash Bros. Now, a game with more surprises than any mythical deity up to no good, Grim Fandango. This stylish film noir classic might not be your first choice when you think of games that zero in on the plight of gods and mortals, but mythology plays a heavy part in the game. While its influences range from Casablanca to the Maltese Falcon, the setting draws heavily from Mesoamerican folklore, most specifically the Aztecs and all their beliefs about the afterlife. This all lays the groundwork, and Grim Fandango goes off in its own deranged direction, and it was incredible. Despite being regarded as one of the best games ever made, its sales were a bit rubbish, and much like Kid Icarus, it was left forgotten about in some dusty old book, like all the stories that inspired it. Let's talk about wolves. They have 4 legs and a tail. They're kind of like dogs. That was a haiku, I know. And this is Okami, a game that has more references to Japanese myths and folklore than a wolf has fur. Probably. You play as the goddess of the sun in her white wolf form, who goes by the name of, okay, here we go, Okami Amaterasu. Yeah, you didn't think I'd get that right, did you? So old Virginia Woolf here basically has to save the world, and to do it, she's got a magic brush. That's the condensed version, but there's a lot more to it. Despite being a PlayStation 2 game, it still stands up and looks great because of its cel-shaded graphics, and it's been re-released on a myriad of platforms since. On a side note, the game's name is also a pun, with Okami meaning either great god or wolf in Japanese. Pretty witty that, I like it. We're halfway through the list now, and that seems like the perfect time to talk about this, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. The game draws heavily from Norse myths, but it ties all that in with a healthy dose of Celtic folklore and customs, which is great to see. Everyone always forgets about the Celts. What the game presents is a tale that's as much about magic and boogeymen as it is about genuine, real-world, human hardships and perseverance. It veers away from the outlandish notions of immortal ne'er-do-wells, instead focusing on the micro-personal level. If you want something gritty, thought-provoking, and impression-making, check out Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. On the other hand, if you just want to be a little scamp and zap people with lightning, summon dragons, and attack people with snakes, then play Age of Mythology. The game is a big one for a lot of folks, and for good reason. Once upon a time, real-time strategy games were all the rage. More often than not, they were a hardship to play, required a ton of skill, and for many of us, they just weren't that inviting. And then the creators of Age of Empires came along, ditched all that history nonsense, added in some minotaurs and trolls, and created the perfect strategy game. While it didn't have the same potential to be a competitive title like StarCraft and the other big mamoos, it was more fun. Despite that, it never became a staple of the RTS genre, and the developers went back down the history route for Age of Empires 3. But for a few years in the early 2000s, when we were all playing Age of Mythology, life was good. We're awarding our number 3 spot to a game that got here through sheer quantity and diversity, Smite. With most games that have a mythology flavour, Greek is the go-to. We all know the shenanigans of the Olympian pantheon. Up next, there's the Norse lot. Odin, Loki, Freya, all their mates. And after that, well, most games won't really stray out of those two comfort zones. But then there's Smite, showing love for Babylonian, Hindi, Polynesian, Slavic mythos. There's Japanese gods, Mayan gods, Roman gods, which, granted, are just badly copied versions of the Greek ones. But the point is, they're there. They even have Cthulhu. The only downside is that you have to play with other people, what with it being a MOBA and all. But if you can look past that, or better yet, for some weird reason you enjoy it, well, Smite might just be the game for you. And now, a game we all knew was going to be on the list. Of course, it's God of War. We're including the whole series here, in case you aren't satisfied with beating the snot out of the Norse divines. The first set of games will see you go on an ultraviolet vacation around Greece, where you'll make Zeus, Poseidon, and all the others cry and squeal like the snotty little babies that they really are. The original set of games alone were enough to warrant God of War a spot on this list, but that, coupled with the reboot, that gets it all the way to our number 2 spot. The newer games obviously keep in line with the bone-crunching, eye-gouging, gonad-squashing tendencies of the original Kratos, but they bring the character a sense of humanity, emotion, and ruggedness, traits that often come with fatherhood. But Kratos is no lame corduroy-wearing dad, he's a bad dad, yeah, bad as in badass, not neglectful, no siree, not like my... Anyway, it doesn't take long for him to get back to his old tricks of bone crunching, eye gouging, and all the other things I said earlier. So if you like your mythologies applied liberally, along with a serving of pain, well, you've probably already played God of War. But if you haven't, do it! Go on, off your hop! Shoo! As my dad said to me. And finally, we've made it to our top spot. For any of your favourite games that I haven't mentioned thus far, I'm sorry. They probably just weren't good enough. And I doubt they can hold a candle to my absolute top pick for mythology buffs. It's Hades. Okay, yes, we're back with the Greeks again. But when they're given this much love and presented in such a way, I don't even mind. The gods and goddesses you'll meet along your journey are so full of warmth, personality, character, and they're also flippin' attractive. I mean, tell me I'm wrong. I know they're gods and all, but they stir something strange deep within me. Anyway, Hades was popping up on Game of the Year lists everywhere upon its release, and for good reason. It took a simple premise, fleshed it out in every which way, and polished the hell out of it. Wordplay intended, yeah. The art style, music, story, writing, and voice acting are all top notch, and its depictions of Greek legends are, for the most part, pretty accurate. Alright, fine. I don't think there's any reference to Theseus riding around in a golden chariot with mounted Gatling guns in the ancient texts, but I'm no classic scholar. He may well have done that, frequently. There's a lot to love if you've got even an inkling towards ancient mythology, and they've presented the various Olympian and chthonic gods and goddesses in a way we never before imagined, but now can think of them no other way. Just look at this. Now look at this. I think we all know which one is better. So, brilliant job to Supergiant Games. You've improved Greek mythology. It's been around for, what, 3,000 odd years? And you've made it cooler and sexier for future generations. Great job. Whether you're into satyrs or shikigami, there's plenty on this list to get your curious little chompers into. So, go play and have some fun. Until next time, that's been the Top 10.